Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is going to be my review for the series premiere of Finding Carter. This was the first episode. There were 2 episodes. I'm going to review both of them to you. But in this video, we're only going to talk about the first episode. So, basically, I was really looking forward to Finding Carter. I actually never talked about it to you guys because when I initially found out about Finding Carter, when I initially found out about it, I had already done my summer show video. I had already done videos about it, and I had already done videos about it. So, yeah, that's why I never talked to you guys about it, because I didn't find out about it till after them, because I was watching the awkward finale, and they showed all these amazing promos for Finding Carter, and I'm like, I gotta check out this show. And I knew there were 15 minutes released last week, but I decided not to watch it because I wanted to see the show for myself, like, as a whole. And overall, what did I think of Finding Carter? Finding Carter's amazing. Okay, Finding Carter is amazing. I had barely any problems with this show. It's my second favorite show on MTV. I think it's going to be a very, very good show. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. And I also love how mature MTV is getting with their programming. Like, this show is probably the most mature show yet. It really is. So, let's just get to it. So basically, if you guys don't know what Finding Carter is about, we'll get to it in a second, but basically, we see Carter and her mom. They are eating frozen yogurt after a movie, and she gets a text from her friend Max, who is actually played by Wyatt from The Fosters. It's the same guy. And Lori tells her to go hang with her friends and to have fun, and it turns out they are breaking and entering. They break into a carousel, turn on the lights and the power, and they climb aboard. And Max tells Carter that they should be friends with benefits, and she says all they ever were benefits, and he says she's overthinking it. And then they start to kiss, but then the cops are there to bust them, and Carter actually goes to the police, believe it or not. She goes behind bars. And, she's like, oh, it's fine, they'll just let us off with a warning. And the cops say, that next time this happens, they have to face a judge, but tonight it's just their parents. However, Carter is not allowed to see her parents. They say your mom's not here yet, and he leaves the cell. And, she's kind of wondering what's going on here. She's like, did something bad happen to my mom? She's met by this girl, Susan Sherman, who is a social worker, and basically, she is there to look for her. And Susan asks if her mom goes by the name Lori Stevens, and she says it's not her real name, and Carter Stevens isn't her real name either. And Susan tells her she was abducted when she was there, and she says the woman who thinks is her that she thinks is her mother is not her mother. It's her kidnapper. And I thought right away, by the way, that was an amazing plot. That's really what got me into the show, was the plot. I just thought it was a really awesome plot. And Carter says that's crazy. She does not believe her at all. She thinks that, something's wrong because she's known her mom for quite a long time. Now, she's freaking out. She doesn't think any of it is true. She doesn't know what to believe, really. And she says she just wants to go home. And Susan says she'll be going home, but not to the home she's accustomed to. And she asks if the name Lyndon Wilson means anything to her, and it turns out that's actually her real name, and Carter says there must be a glitch. They show her, she shows her mugshot from last night, and then her a month before she was kidnapped. And she looks completely different in the picture before she was kidnapped, she has blonde hair, and she looks completely different, and she says it may not be her, and they tell her it's clearly her ear, and they show her a fingerprint match from her toys when she was a child, and then from when she was arrested. And she says her mom is amazing, and she still wants her no matter what. And Susan says her real parents are there and are anxious to meet her. And then she goes to meet her parents. Now, this is all happening so fast for her. I know some people were complaining on the fast pacing of this show, but the thing is, in real life, I think what they're trying to show here is that it's all happening so fast for her, it's like overwhelming. Then she meets her new parents, Liz and David, and they call her Lyndon and tell her she's beautiful, and her mom asks if she remembers her and David, and her husband tells her that she needs time, and they ask if she remembers her twin sister, Taylor. And she didn't even know she had a sister, And basically, they show Liz and David a photo of the Lori and Liz of the girl Lori, who's not really Lori, and Liz recognizes her. And the biggest thing is that they know her. We find out we find out she's actually a family friend of theirs, which is really surprising. So Carter thinks about her mom, Lori, and who is the only mom she knows at this point. Now think about it. Her whole life has just been ripped out of her, and she's now being forced to live with her actual family. She has no idea what's going on right now. So Liz is on the phone ranting, and Carter says she sounds like a cop, and David says she's the detective. And Liz is setting up a reward for her arrest. And they tell her that her kidnapper told them her name was Janet, and she did home care. And this is really interesting. I like that we found out more about her character here. And, they were very critical of her for not spending enough time with her girls. And she tells them she wants them, and basically, she's very stressed out. She doesn't know what's going on. She wants them to call her Carter, because, she's familiar with that name. And, David says to her, but you have to understand, that name reminds us of a very difficult time. But she says to them, look, my whole life has been ripped apart, and that's the only thing, that name is the only thing I have left of that life. So they agree to call her Carter. So then they pull up to a house, and there's a crush of press, and there's a whole bunch of paparazzi there. Because, think about it, if this were to happen in your life, this would be on news like crazy. Everyone would want to talk to this girl and this family. But Liz just shoves through them because they don't really want to talk to them. And then we see Toby, who is David's literary agent. And he's there, and he introduced himself. And then Buddy and Joan, who are her grandparents, are there also hugging her. She calls him Papa, and he tells her he tells her welcome home. And Joan also hugs her and says she'll remember her soon. And they tell Liz to put the phone down, and then she turns and sees Taylor and asks if she has a brother. So yeah, Taylor and her are, twin sisters, as I said, and then her brother is Grant. And Grant says he's not shocking. David says to hold back the sarcasm. Grant says he's the replacement child for when she got there. Now, I thought there was going to be a lot of tension between them, and his character is definitely very interesting. Right away, though, I don't know why. His character kind of reminds me, we'll talk about this a little later, but, he reminds me of Jude from the Fosters in some ways. I don't know why. He just does. Something about him reminds me of Jude from the Fosters. And she asked, then, what happens is, he asks Taylor if, she asks, Taylor if she remembers her, and she says no. She asked them all to call her Carter, and Toby sneaks in the back door and asks to talk to David. Now, this is a very big thing. I really like this thing that was going on here. They tell her that David wrote a best-selling book about her, and she asks, what about her and Liz? What about her? And Liz says it's called Losing Lyndon. And she says she'll read it after she finishes Anna Karenina, but then admits she's not reading it. And it turns out David, they are not very, they are very financially, they have a lot of financial problems. And Toby says this could be a huge payday and could take care of his financial crisis. He reminds him he took a $500K advance and he can write a book, Finding Lyndon. But he says her name is Carter now, so Toby says fine and tells him to start writing Finding Carter. So that's why the show's called Finding Carter, because he's gonna write this book about her. But also it's kind of called Finding Carter because she's kind of finding herself. So Carter then looks at a photo of her and her fake mom, and it's really sad because, she thought that was her mom all this time, and she wasn't, and she thinks back to their time again. Liz asks if she can come in, and she brings her some food, and she says her grandmother's out there making waffles and omelets, and she doesn't know what she likes to eat, and she says she didn't want to subject her to a family onslaught. She tells her she and Taylor could take the car and go check out the town, and Carter reminds her she already has friends. And Liz says it's a 2-hour drive and offers to drive her. Carter asks if someone is to be in the car with her, and Liz sits and tells her she's willing to do whatever it takes to make their relationship work. She really wants to be a good mom to her, and I like that about her. And Carter says trusting her would help. Later, she peels out with the car and says it was a joke. And David says it was a good one, and she speeds off, and David reminds her she wouldn't let the daughter they know, taking off with their car. So Liz calls the station to activate the tracker they put on her car, and Carter meets Max at the carousel because, they got close, and I really like their friendship. I really do. As I said, Max is played by Wyatt from the Fosters, and honestly, I kind of like this character more. He's funnier. He's, just like he's just a funnier character, and I like his character more. I don't know why. Basically, Carter meets Max at the carnival, the carousel, and she sees that it's been closed for the season, and she's bummed out, and she says no one is answering her text, and Max says people are freaked out. She says her name isn't her name, her mom isn't her mom, and apparently her friends aren't her friends, and she pulls out to a joint. Kyle, the cop who's following, he reports back to Liz and says she's just sitting there. Basically, this guy, she calls him her stalker, basically because, he's watching her every move. Honestly, that would be extremely creepy if that would happen to me. Now, Carter tells Max she hates the mom and the family, but says her twin is okay. But Max tells her this isn't goodbye, and she curls into his lap, and Kyle watches all this, but then Max spots him and says there's a guy creeping on them and watching them in the side view mirror. Carter yells at him and says her mom is a cop and that she'll find him. And Max says they probably shouldn't have had the weed. And Carter says her other mom is a feline, and that's what she takes after. So Carter comes in and tells her twin, and then she meets up with Taylor. And we see that they're getting along very well. Taylor says she does most of the cooking. And Carter says fantastic. She tells Taylor she likes to bake. And Taylor says she meets her friends at a yogurt place. And they agree to leave. And Liz and David come in and says she's back. And Carter says according to the FBI, this is where she lives, and Carter asks the creeper following her was sent by them. And Liz denies it and says she trusts her, which, as we know, that's not true. This guy was sent to spy on her. That is the truth. So the girls then leave to get some frozen yogurt, from the beginning of the episode. And Carter sees a mom and daughter and has basically has a lot of pangs missing her mom. Because, she gets kind of like memories from that, and she kind of gets upset about that. So yeah, that was definitely very sad to watch, honestly. She asks the sample guy how she gets a job there, and the guy Zubin, who works there, says she just needs to talk to him. She says it's the opportunity of a lifetime for him, and she says she'll be there tomorrow. And Taylor then introduces her long-lost sister to her friend Gabe, and you can see that Gabe, I knew right away, I'm like, okay, he is going to be Carter's love interest, I just know it. He asked if it would help to go to a party, and she says yes, and Taylor says she's actually never been to a party. And, Carter, of course, her mom didn't care what she did, her old mom. She partied a lot, she did drugs, things like that. She was basically, as Taylor called it, a slut. So then we go to the party, of course, and there's a lot of, crazy, shit going on, booze, there's, a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs, a lot of sexting, and Carter gives her sister tips on partying, and she wows Taylor's school friends with her antics, because I guess they just haven't been partying. They just haven't. Now Taylor sits with Gabe and asks what he's drinking, and he says it's something lethal, and she takes a drink and says she can't taste, the alcohol, and he says that's why it's lethal. She pulls her hair down, tries to get his attention, but he's checking out her sister. So, Taylor said it's fun watching him stare at her sister, and he says he can't help but be intrigued. He asks what it was like, and she says she lived in an apartment in Pennsylvania, and she wasn't sold into slavery. She says she's not sure how happy Carter is to be back with them, but she's never done anything fun because she grew up living in fear of the terrible thing that happened to her sister. And it turns out it wasn't that terrible at all. So she kind of has, she's kind of jealous of Carter because Carter got to do whatever she wanted, basically, which I can understand that. And Taylor then actually takes another drink and says she's making up for lost time. So Gabe then drops the girls off, and he tells Carter his favorite movie is Mean Girls, which, hey, that's fine. Mean Girls is a good movie. And he tells her it's a secret, and he tells her she's cool, and she says he is too. He tells her he's sorry it's been so rough on her, and says at least she made one new friend. And Carter says he's her first one there, and admits it's not so bad. He leans in for a kiss, but she stops him, and he says he can take it slow. And Carter says she can't do that to Taylor, and he asks what, and he doesn't get it, and she tells him that Taylor likes him, and he says they've been friends in 2nd grade, and she's like his sister. Now, I was kind of thinking this as well, and then there's a knock on her window, and a flashlight shining in. They ask where Taylor is. It's Liz and David, and they're very concerned about Taylor, and basically she's in the back. Carter says she's drunk and may have had a pop brownie, and they tell Gabe to go home. Carter thanks him, and she says she had fun, and he says he'd like to do it again, and Carter says we'll see, and asks if her mom is still there. And Liz says she doesn't want her passing her bad habits on to Taylor and Carter, and Carter asks what about her that she doesn't like. And she says to name something about her that she does like, or anything about her at all. Carter at this point is just feeling like her mother doesn't really like her at all, and Liz basically says she's trying to get to know her, but she won't let her, and Carter tells her she's a stiff control freak who operates from her place of fear, and she says her mom told her every day that she loved her, and she hasn't heard it once from any member of her family. And that's really sad, honestly. I think it's just kind of because they're just finding her, they don't know what to do, but she feels really, out of place in this family. So Grant is there, and we finally see a very touching scene. We see that Grant might actually, have a lot of bond very well with Carter. He says it's their fault that she's that way. He says she was kidnapped and he was born 10 weeks early and almost died, and that was going to be Liz's second dead kid since everyone assumed she was already dead. And Grant says he thinks it'll get better, and Carter says not to hold his breath, but he says he can for 5 minutes. And what I like about their relationship is it just seems like they're going to have a very good relationship. It seems like he's going to be a very nice little brother to her. And that scene is where he started to remind me of Jude. He really did remind me of Callie and Jude, the bond that they have, and, really reminded me of that. It really did. And that's a good thing, because, I love the Fosters, and I think Jude's a great character. And I like Grant as well. He seems like he's going to be a very nice little brother to Carter. I like that, definitely. So Carter's then at the frozen yogurt place where there is a bunch of customers taking selfies, and she tells them they can put her on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, any kind of social media that they want. And David and Gabe show up, and he asks for a picture with her, and she agrees, and she says it can be the cover of his new book, of his next book. And David says he thought she didn't want him writing about her, and she says the JK was silence, and he laughs and says he can learn. And Zubin says to be sure to post where Carter works, and she agrees, and Ish says she wants everyone to know where to find her. But basically, she just wants her other mom to be able to get to her. And David asks what she's doing, and Gabe says she's sending a message to her other mom. And David says he needs to pay more attention to her and to him. And Grant says that would be nice, and he calls Liz. And she then ignores the call, and she's at a hotel. And then she meets Kyle there, and he asks if she's mad that Carter saw him. And she says it's not his fault. She says it was a bad idea to begin with, and so is this. Kyle says this was more than an idea, and tells Liz he loves her, and reminds her she's... Now, this is really big. I did not expect this at all. Now, basically, we find out that Kyle and Liz are together. He reminds her that she's leaving her husband to be with him, and Liz says she can't now. Now, that is huge right there. I was like, wow, she's going to leave her husband? I was just like, okay, that was really surprising. And she says Carter is back and says she has her family together. She says she can't give it up. She lays down the key card to the room and says she's sorry, and she ends up leaving. So David asks Liz if she got his message, and she says they're following up. He says she shouldn't be there, and says if Carter sees her arrest her kidnapper, it will end up ruining her. So, I can definitely understand why he said that. Basically, she says he has no relationship with her either, and David says he has a photo with her and shows her the selfie. Liz says she needs to arrest the psycho bitch that stole her baby and ripped out her insides, and David tells her it's okay not to be strong all the time and holds her, and that was very sad. But then we see a very interesting scene here, because at the yogurt shop, Gabe is eating with Taylor, who comes to sit with him, and he compliments her new clothes, and she says drinking isn't as easy as it looks, and she asks him to take her to more parties, and he asks if Carter can go alone. And she says, of course, but they're not like the Olsen twins. He says he wants to get to know her better, and she asks if he wants to go out with her, and, he says if she's okay with it, and she says, why wouldn't she be? And he says Carter said that he likes her, and he told her she's like her sister. And Carter walks up, and Taylor gets annoyed and leaves, and she asks Gabe what it was all about. And Gabe says she said she didn't like him, and Carter says she wonders why and stomps off. She's told to get back to work. And then a woman comes up with a container of gummy bears, and it's actually her kidnapper mom in a blonde wig. But she rings her up, and she hands over the money with a note in it that says she loves her more. So yeah, her actual kidnapper came to the yogurt place just to tell her that she loves her. So she really does care about her. And there are now sirens outside. Carter takes her to the back. She tells her to take sample, walk out the front door. And her mom says there are things she needs to know, and Carter tells her to go. But what does she need to know? We don't know. So she sends her out with the samples as Liz comes in. And Liz asks Carter where she is, and Carter's like, where who is? And she says Lori Stevens won't get away. She tells her that Lori isn't exactly Lara Croft. And, you know, Gabe, we then find out that Kyle is Gabe's dad. And, then Carter blows up at Liz, which I can totally understand why she does this. She says she looked her right in the eyes and lied to her. She says Lori was there and risked her life to look her in the eyes for 5 seconds and tell her she loves her. And she says to Liz, if she wants to find her abductor, to look in the mirror because it's her. And that's how the episode ended. So she is not happy with Liz at all. I can totally understand why she's not happy. Because the person that's been her mother all this time, she wants to now arrest her, and Carter thinks that she is more of a mother to her than, Liz is. And I really hope that Liz and Carter do end up, really getting along very well. But I absolutely loved this first episode. I'll talk about the second episode in the next video, but I absolutely loved this first episode. I thought it was fantastic. I had no problems with it. I thought it was very, very good. The acting in the show is amazing. Catherine Prescott as Carter is just amazing. You gotta love her character. I love her character. She is fantastic in this show. I love her acting. I thought she did an amazing job. She's by far the best in this show. She really is amazing. She reminds me of Callie from The Fosters. I just don't know why. She just does. Cynthia Watros says Liz is also very good. I really like her character. Elizabeth, she's very good in the show as well. As her mother. You can see that she really wants to be a good mother to her, but she's kind of just like a control freak, and she's so fixated on catching Lori that she doesn't even try to be a good mother to her own daughter. Anna Jacoby Heron as Taylor. I felt bad for her, honestly. She's kind of like the child that, Taylor is getting more than her, and she's kind of jealous of her, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with her. Alexis Denisoff as David. I liked him. I thought he was a good father to her. And then Zach Pullum as Grant. I like him because he is a good brother to Carter. He really cares about her. He wants to be a good brother to her, and I like that definitely. That was very good. And then the one that played Lori was great as well, Melina Govich. And then the only other character I think I'll talk about is where Alex Sakin as Max. He was great as well. And then Jesse Henderson as Gabe. He was really good as well. But overall, I absolutely love this show. I think this show is fantastic, in my opinion. It really doesn't have that many problems at all. It really doesn't. I don't think it has many problems. And we're going to see what happens in the next episode. But that's it for my review of the first episode of Finding Carter. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I will see you guys in my video for the second episode of Finding Carter. So I'll see you guys, which I did watch both episodes. I just wanted to review them separately. So I'll see you guys for that video. Okay, bye.